forged on the gridiron in September. Perfected in the magic of March.
Again, rebounded by Indiana. The game is over.
For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk,
Oh, he just shook the gravity.
and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger Ten. Here's Steve Dace.
Greetings. Welcome to another week of Bigger Ten. I'm Steve Dace alongside my co-host and absolutely never partner, Aaron McIntyre. Good to see you again, my friend. Way to represent for your Chiefs. I am representing for denim shirts. Let's get to it. You ready to roll?
You bet. Let's go.
Let's go. We've got the big 5 topics on Bigger Ten, and it shouldn't have been a very newsworthy week, but alas, it was. Starting with on January 4th of 2020, Kevin Warren was announced as the successor to the Godfather, Jim Delaney, maybe the most successful, powerful conference commissioner in the history of college sports. Almost exactly 3 years to the day, Kevin Warren said, peace out, and took off for greener pastures as the new president of the Chicago Bears. A move not many people saw coming until it was kind of leaked right before Christmas that it might occur. The idea that he was going to leave wasn't even discussed. There's a lot of people, I think, that wanted him to leave after his first year and a half on the job. But then, of course, he made the power play with USC and UCLA, the incredible TV contract the Big Ten signed, and it seemed as if his stock was back on the rise. But alas, the Big Ten is looking for a third conference commissioner here in just the last 4 years. Aaron, your thoughts?
So the little lower third there is a little bit of a misnomer. I probably shouldn't have put that on there. I don't know if you heard this, Steve. It wasn't really widely reported. And I cannot remember who first broke this. It was one of the major college football beat writers. But Kevin Warren's contract was actually not renewed. So this was not necessarily something that he did by himself. It's not like he just said, peace out. From what I have heard, it was not renewed. I don't know when it went through, but I don't know if he was expecting something, or maybe they knew he was leaving already and did not offer him a new contract.
That's the first I've heard that.
That's kind of a wrinkle that a lot of people I don't think have talked about too much. But overall, when it comes to Kevin Warren, I mean, it was just a complete and total failure with COVID. Total failure with COVID. I mean, you had the graphic of parents of athletes going to the Big Ten headquarters and protesting, saying, let our kids play, let our sons play football. And then eventually you kind of looked weak because whether or not you actually gave into their demand specifically, for all intents and purposes, you did. And just a complete and total bungling of COVID. When it comes to the other stuff, though, a complete and total success in terms of getting the most lucrative TV rights deal maybe this country has ever seen, or maybe in the history of the world when it comes to collegiate athletics, or maybe minor league, if you want to call that, amateur athletics. I mean, you couldn't have really done much of a better job. I mean, I defy you to maybe lay out a roadmap to show how much better of a job you could have done with the new TV rights deal. Expanding the Big Ten, I know people have mixed feelings about that. I do as well. Couldn't have done much of a better job. So this, in my mind, COVID was a big deal, but that was also one season. The rest of the time, I felt like he did a fairly decent job. So barely, I would say, a successful tenure.
So I'd give him a solid F for the first year and a half.
Yeah.
I'd give him an absolute A for the last year and a half. What is that average? Maybe a C?
Yeah.
So are we talking
average.
Overall a C tenure?
Yep, average.
It's going to be fascinating to see what the league will do next. And I would imagine wanting someone that they are sure wants to be here for the next 4 to 5 years, because you don't want to have to make another switch before the next TV contract comes up, right? And you're going to be incorporating USC and UCLA into the league. You've got the expansion of the college football playoff starting in 2024. I mean, this is a period of time right now when you want to make sure you have stability to navigate what are going to be some waters of metamorphosis in collegiate sports. So it'll be fascinating to see what the league does next. Speaking of leaving, we had the deadline this week for NFL early draft entries. easy for me to say in English. NFL early draft declarations is what I meant to say. Athlon Sports put out its list of teams that were winners and losers across the country. I have it up here on my phone. I want to go to it because they gave a pretty good detailed analysis of how they saw the Big Ten. For teams that were winners in the Big Ten, they said Michigan, other than losing DJ Turner and Jamon Green, the Wolverines bring back everybody else, including Blake Corum, who won the Silver Football Award for Big Ten Player of the Year. In fact, they had Michigan, the number 2 winner, next to Florida State. Penn State with Adisa Isaac, Curtis Jacobs, Olu Fashanu coming back to Penn State, helped to alleviate some of the losses like Joey Porter Jr. and Parker Washington. They rate Iowa and who am I missing here? Scrolling down. Illinois and Iowa as teams that had some good, some bad. Illinois obviously is going to miss Devon Witherspoon, Sidney Brown. However, Jerzon Newton, Keith Randolph, they opted to return. Running back Chase Brown left, but receiver Isaiah Williams, who was phenomenal for them last year, returned. For Iowa, they say, big loss, obviously, with Jack Campbell, who had an extra year of eligibility, as did Lucas Van Ness, who they're now talking about maybe being a first-round pick. However, only at Iowa, with the punter returning, be listed as a big win, but punting is winning. Torrey Taylor is there, as long as a couple of key linemen as well. And then for teams that were losers with the NFL draft declarations this year, one of their big losers was Ohio State, if for no other reason than just the departure of C.J. Stroud. He took it down to the very last day, which had some people wondering, hey, is C.J. Stroud going to return to Ohio State? But he didn't. And then some programs right now that, given their current state of things, can't afford to be losers here. Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, Maryland losing several key players. Wisconsin lost a bunch as well, but has also been very active in the transfer portal overall to try to counteract that to some extent. So your thoughts on how Athlon Sports rated how Big Ten teams did with early entries into the NFL draft?
I think that's fairly. I think that's fair.
Oh, and I forgot about Michigan State. My bad. They mentioned Michigan State with Jacoby Windman and several other players coming back. My bad, forgetting about Sparty. Should have included them among the winners.
I think that's fair. Unlike 5 years ago, just because of the way the transfer portal has changed things, I don't think early entrants into the draft are as big of a deal as they used to be because everybody's reloading anyway, so throw another 5 shrimp on the Barbie here. We're going to have to go to the portal anyway. The positions where it hurts the most, though, quarterback. If your quarterback leaves early. So Ohio State definitely being a loser. That totally makes sense. Other areas, a lot of, like Iowa, losing Van Ness pretty early, actually. That kind of hurts, but then again, you've got a little bit of depth there and some guys who've already played. So yeah, if you're the Illinois and Iowa on this, you really don't know how to feel going into next season because your team is going to look a lot different than it did, especially in Iowa's case last year. For better or worse, you don't know. Michigan's case. You're returning basically your entire offensive line that's won the Joe Moore Award 2 times in a row. That's a huge deal. Now, that was the same offensive line that got manhandled in the bowl game, but I can't imagine that that's going to be the same effort that we see the whole season next year. So I think it's a fairly fair assessment. This is the second consecutive year that Michigan made the playoff and then will return 33 of the 44 players that were on the 2 deep for the playoff game. Second consecutive year for Michigan to do that. So let's play a little game. You up for a game? Sure. Let's play a game called Upgrade or Not. The transfer portal window is about to close for guys to enter, not for guys to go to other schools. It's about to close here in the next couple of days. But most of the major movement is done for now. There'll be a lot more major movement again after spring ball, and guys have an opportunity to kind of see where they stack up right on the roster. So we'll see another round. May not be quite as crazy as what we saw in December and January, but it'll still be prolific. But we have a pretty good idea of who's going where, particularly at the quarterback position. So we're going to go through every Big Ten team that made a quarterback addition via the transfer portal as a potential starter. We're going to decide upgrade or not, and it's okay to say about the same, okay? So an upgrade means this
absolutely changes the trajectory of the team or your expectations for this season prior to their arrival. A downgrade means it does the same thing, but in the other direction. Or maybe you're just like, meh, I think it's about as good as what they had last year. All right?
Let's go.
Let's go through these. All right, let's start with Illinois. Tommy DeVito moving on. Luke Altmaier, who lost the battle with Jackson Dart to be starting quarterback at Ole Miss this offseason, he comes in to be Illinois' new quarterback. Upgrade or not?
I think that's going to be an upgrade. Illinois they did well with the quarterbacks that they had in front of them, but I think Altmaier is going to be a marked upgrade. What year is Altmaier? Do you know off the top of your head?
I want to say he's a true junior.
Is he a true? Well, I think that's going to be a definite upgrade then.
Let's go to probably the most obvious upgrade. Iowa here. Spencer Petras to Cade McNamara. Just saying that out loud doesn't require any other analysis.
Yeah, this is the biggest upgrade, not only in the league, but in the entire country. I still remain somewhat pessimistic that Iowa's system is going to change at all. But, by every measurable and by all accounts, the immeasurable aspects, this is a huge upgrade overall.
All right, over at Nebraska, exit Casey Thompson. Enter Jeff Sims, the transfer from Georgia Tech, who was supposed to be the recruit. The recruit that transformed the Georgia Tech program. Didn't quite turn out that way, but still a very talented kid. Upgrade or not?
I'm at a meh on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think that that Nebraska's new coach, whose name is escaping me right now,
Matt
Rule, thank you. I have to think that he saw something in this guy to think, he could fit into this system right now. So I'll default to him. Casey Thompson, not exactly. He had his moments last season. It's just like every Nebraska quarterback for the last 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, just too many turnovers, not taking care of the ball. So I'm at a meh on this one.
Jeff Sims is the guy that when he gets off the bus, that's what you want your quarterback to look like.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk Purdue. Out Aiden O'Connell, in Texas transfer Hudson Card.
I think Card has a huge upside, but it's, Aiden O'Connell. He was, at times, he looked pedestrian, but at times he looked like you can't stop this guy. It's going to be really difficult for somebody to just step in and kind of, take up from where he left off. So I'm going to say this is, for now, a downgrade. I think Card's, ceiling could be high, but I think for now it's a downgrade.
I agree with you on all these so far except Illinois. I'd probably make it a meh, but you could make a case given their recruiting profiles that Altmaier could turn out to be an upgrade. All right, Wisconsin. From Gran Mertz to Tanner Mordecai, who comes in with his 80-plus career touchdowns. They also added former stud recruit Nick Ewers at Oklahoma.
They also just picked up a USC wide receiver, too.
Yeah, so Nick Ewers, they got their quarterback for 23. They got their quarterback for 24 in the portal. But right now we're talking Tanner Mordecai, who, with 80-plus career touchdowns, ain't coming to Madison to give the ball to Braylon Allen 40 times a game, right? So what do you think? Upgrade or not?
Huge upgrade.
I agree.
Huge upgrade. And I'm not just talking about remains to be seen. Mordecai seems like a guy who's going to fit in very, very nicely with Fickell's system. So I don't know. I think we're going to find out actually fairly quickly at Wisconsin if Fickell is going to work there. I just fear, if I was a Wisconsin fan, I just fear there are 2 or 3, definitely 1, other teams in your own division. Now the divisions are going away, but you still have to think that Wisconsin's going to be in a pod with Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois. There's 2 other teams that play a fairly similar style to what you played under Christ and really every coach since the 90s. I just fear you're changing that formula up, and you were better at that system than Iowa all these years, than Illinois all these years, although Illinois has changed 5 times. You were better at all of that, and you're kind of just throwing that away to go to Fickell's style. That would be the fear. Now, they have the dogs to do it right now. They have the guys to do it. It's seemingly transferring in. That would be my long-term fear with this.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. As a program that tried that, and with all due respect to Wisconsin, it's not Michigan. We tried that, and we did that also at the hotshot coach at the time in Rich Rod. Everybody remembers how that turned out. I mean, since the early 1960s, Wisconsin football has only been nationally relevant looking one way.
Yep.
The Barry Alvarez way. And so, yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned about that. You bet. But it's clear Fickle is all in, bringing in Robert Luongo as the OC, bringing in Tanner Mordecai from the air raid at SMU as the quarterback. So we're going to find out. It might be great. I don't know. We both just said we think Tanner Mordecai is a huge upgrade over Graham Mertz at quarterback, so there's that. All right, let's go to Michigan now, the two-time reigning Big Ten champion. This year's Willie or Won't He with Jim Harbaugh to the NFL lasted shorter than the last 2 years. He made it officially, on Monday. I'm coming back for sure to coach the team, and did so by notifying the school president and not his former teammate, the AD, who clearly there are some frosty relations with. We discussed this ad nauseum the last 2 weeks on Michigan podcast, broke it all down. But from a broader Big Ten perspective, Aaron, do you have a take on this at all? He is the Big Ten coach of the year after all.
The whole thing with the athletic director, I would love, lions laying down with lambs types of things. I would love for there to be a little bit more, I guess, taking the high road. But let's be honest here, and I'm loathed to say this to some degree. If you had to take a haircut and then you respond, you were basically called in. Your entire identity was called into question, and rightfully so. And you respond by going back-to-back to the college football playoff, back-to-back Big Ten champions. I'd be like, I think the temptation would be to go, screw you, dude. I'm not talking to you. I proved you wrong. That seems like the Jim Harbaugh thing to do, actually.
That does seem like the Jimmy thing to do.
Not saying that's
what's your deal, Jimmy, right there.
That's not saying that that's the right thing. I'd like to see him take the high road, but I think for any guy, especially Jim Harbaugh with his personality, that seems like what really happened there. So I assume there was some sort of come to Jesus negotiation with Ono, the president, about NIL. Do you think that was on the table?
I do.
I have to believe so.
Yeah.
Like, I ain't sticking around here for more than a year if y'all don't kind of get off of your stupid high horse.
And I think you will see a big announcement about that here in the not too distant future where Michigan is concerned.
So, I mean, that should have happened last year if you're Michigan, or 2 years ago.
I agree.
But the whole thing, I'm just kind of, Brandon Staley didn't get fired, so who knows what'll happen after that.
I don't think it's a coincidence that the Chargers players go out there and say we want Brandon Staley back, and about 30 minutes later, Harbaugh calls San Ono, say, I'm coming back. Yeah. Because that is a job I know everyone at Michigan knows he has long coveted. Of course, he's a former player there. His wife's from that area. So, all right, let's go back to the final AP poll. And a couple of Big Ten related notes on how the Big Ten ended up faring in the final Associated Press College Football Top 25 of the year. This is the first consecutive top 3 finishes for the Michigan Wolverines since the Mad Magicians post-World War II, 1947-48. I mean, Bo Schembechler finished in the top 10 of the AP poll 17 of his 21 years, but he never finished in the top 3 in consecutive seasons. Lloyd Carr, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame, he never did that. So, I mean, this is some pretty rarefied air for Jim Harbaugh there. For Ohio State, talk about rarefied air. It's the 5th time in the last 6 years that the Buckeyes have finished in the top 10. That's just, you're getting close to one of the greatest stats I've ever seen in college football. Florida State finished in the top 4 of the AP poll 14 years in a row under Bobby Bowden. That's incredible. I mean, seeing Ohio State finish in the top 5 times in 6 years is impressive. Try doing the top 4 14 years in a row, because Florida State did that back in the day. And then finally for Penn State, this would be something to remember because they're going to have a lot of expectations going into this coming season. But this is the second time under James Franklin that the Nittany Lions were unranked in the preseason and finished in the final AP top 10. And then overall, Aaron, it's the first time since 2014 when Ohio State won the first playoff, by the way. It's the first time since 2014 that the Big Ten only had 3 teams in the final AP poll. What do you think?
Well, on Michigan and Ohio State, it's impressive, as we just discussed with Jim Harbaugh, having the issues that he's had and then responding the way that he has. I don't know where you go from here if you're Ohio State. I think this is something that's kind of in between the ears with them right now as it pertains to Michigan. I kind of want to talk about Penn State some more. I think they have a chance in the East next year, and
I agree.
I think a lot of people are in agreement with that as well. I don't know what I do. I think the one thing they have to answer right away, they've got to get something. They've got to get, sounds cliche, an identity, something they do really well offensively, because that's kind of been their bugaboo to some degree when it comes to playing the big dogs in the East over there. It's just very inconsistent offensively. They will be on the road for both. Did you play them?
We play them there.
Yeah. Okay. So they'll be on the road against Ohio State.
I'm guessing the draft for what's the one game everybody wants. I'm guessing the draft for the new Big Ten TV deal will go like this. I'm guessing Fox takes Michigan and Ohio State, and I'm guessing NBC says, "Yeah, we'll take the whiteout." Michigan at Penn State. We're going to take that one. I'm guessing that's how that's probably going to go. So, yeah, we play there.
Yeah, so I think there is a chance we'll be looking at a lot of second, third, fourth tiebreakers next season. I think there is a chance. There was a chance earlier this year when it looked like I think it was Penn State was about to. Well, they were looking pretty good against Ohio State, where it looked like Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State were all going to have one loss in league play. I think that race is going to be extra fun to watch next year.
That'll do it for our Big Five topics here on Bigger 10. We'll come back here in a moment and play Would You Rather. All right, time now for a weekly game of Would You Rather here on Bigger 10. And Aaron, I ask you, would you rather be consulted about hiring the next Big Ten commissioner or hiring the broadcast teams for Big Ten football games?
I would want to be Big Ten commissioner just to hire, or consulted about the Big Ten commissioner just so I could recommend Gary Barta get hired for that, so that I don't have to worry about him as athletic director at the University of Iowa
The
anymore.
dude has had a knack for failing upwards in his career. Straight up.
So, but no, seriously, I think the college football, I mean, this league is going to be on autopilot unless they want to expand, unless the presidents really want to expand some more, which maybe that's the case. I don't really see that right now. This league is going to be on autopilot, making $7 billion a year or whatever it is, or $10
It's a
billion.
good gig if you can land it.
So I mean, just get somebody who doesn't screw things up. What could go wrong, right? So I would want to be on the CFP committee, especially going forward. Now, in some respects, their job is going to get easier than it has been. I mean, it is a tough gig trying to formulate and spin up SEC positive narratives every single week. That is a tough gig.
That's funny. Not the CFP. I'm sorry. Determining who Big Ten's television
for some reason,
I
had it in my mind.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you literally read it. I read it before the show, and so for some reason, I just had it in my mind.
Oh, I'm actually glad you screwed it up because that's a great line. Okay.
Yeah.
But now back to the actual question.
Back to the actual thing. Oh man, I would rather be consulted about the broadcast teams. I think that's more of a consequential, actually, in some respects, week to week thing than the commissioner of the Big Ten. Even though that is an important job, but you're going to be spending so much money if you're these TV networks on this deal. You're spending so much money. You really got to stick the landing with the presentation and who's calling the games. You really have to do that. Don't just show up and kind of put your B team out there. Mm-hmm. And with CBS and NBC, they don't really have much of a choice. They're going to have one game a week. I guess some will be on CBS Sports Network, but yeah, you really got to stick the landing, so I'd want to be consulted on that. Next one is for you. Would you rather be in charge of the NIL collective at Michigan or be director of recruiting at Michigan?
I'd much rather be in charge of the NIL collective because I trust my instincts much more when it comes to raising the money and allocating it. I'd rather have that responsibility than procuring of the and identifying of the actual players. I'll leave that one to the professionals. But the other job actually kind of is partly in my professional wheelhouse. So I think I'd do the first job there with the NIL collective because that's a little bit more my experience, resume, and skill set than the latter. For you, would you rather have control over the net rankings or the college football playoff rankings? This is where I got
confused. I melded this one and the last one together. I I would rather have control over the college football playoff rankings.
Because you want to embrace the challenge of coming up with an SEC spin positive narrative every week.
Yeah, why not? I mean, the net rankings are basically all algorithmic anyway, so I'm not really sure.
So you could change that if you were in charge,
True,
though. You could make it
true.
less algorithms and a little bit more human factor if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're basically asking me, do you want to control the BCS algorithms or to, do the college football playoff thing here? So I would still want to do the college football playoff. Just I think you have more of an opportunity to piss people off with that. And
there you go.
That's something that should always be relished.
And who doesn't want more of those kinds of opportunities? You know I do.
Yep. Final one is for you. Would you rather teams be forced to forfeit games if they have to cancel because of COVID, or are you fine with trying to reschedule like the policy apparently is now?
I would make them cancel. First of all, why are we even doing this?
It's frickin' 2023.
Yeah, what are we doing here at all?
I don't know.
Number one, which is why I'd make you forfeit. I mean, if you're telling me you can't play, then
and now
you forfeit.
So we're referring, of course, to Northwestern, who has apparently COVID and injury issues. Teams have injury issues all the time.
Yeah.
We never canceled games because of the flu. Maybe once or twice if it was really bad. I feel like I can remember. We never used to cancel games because of the flu.
It's the wussification of America continues, my friend. I mean,
yeah.
if you want to still enforce this silly rule, fine, then you'll just forfeit if you can't play. Yeah. So there we go. We'll come back, wrap things up here in a moment. This week's Twitter poll, we asked you, who is your way too early favorite to win the 2023 Big Ten Football Championship? And man, this was close. 31.5% said other. 31% said Ohio State. 30.2% said Michigan. So we're going to have a recount there with those slim margins. 7.2% of you said Penn State. I think you're underselling that.
Yep.
Actually, I'd drop Ohio State's margin down
You're
about 10 points.
Other too.
Yeah, and I would, well, there you go. Let's do this. Take 5 points off of Ohio State and 5 points off of other, put them both on Penn State, and maybe that might be a little bit closer. Maybe take actually 5 off Ohio State and 10 off of other, and put 15 there on Penn State. Now you're a little bit closer maybe now.
I would do 30, 25. So that's 55, 20, that's 75. And then, I wouldn't go any further than 25% on other. I would say if things really click right away in Wisconsin, they would have a chance. Mm-hmm. But then again, you're losing Jim Knowles too, their defensive coordinator. So I'm not really sure what that side of the ball is going to look like anymore. I guess maybe, I can't foresee Iowa even being able to keep up with Michigan or Ohio State. We saw that last season. So, way overselling other.
Let's get to the feedback of the week here on Bigger Ten. And it's from John Endicott. In response to the news that Kevin Warren is moving on, he says, did he immediately announce plans to postpone the next season of Bears games? There you go. Well done, John. Very snotty, very snarky. And of course, this show approves. There you go. That'll have it for this week's episode of Bigger Ten. Don't forget you can like, rate, subscribe, share, 5-star review, whichever applies, however you watch, like right here on YouTube, or listen, like on iTunes and elsewhere. Help us to find more Big Ten sports fans just like you. Pretty please. You can also follow us in between episodes on Twitter, at Bigger10 on Twitter, at Bigger10 on Twitter. Until the next time, I'm Steve Dace. He's Aaron McIntyre. We'll see you next week right here on Bigger Ten.